And we're about to see this giant, we call oatmeal radioactive mush, cause a pyrophoric fire. Now, for people who don't know what a pyrophoric fire is, Chris, I'd like you to explain it, and I'll kind of add some details. But as these borinated rubber break down, so you don't slow the neutrons, as these corium kind of mush together, as it all becomes mixed with, of course, the aquifer that's flowing underneath the whole plant, because it's literally built on an aquifer flowing from further in the island of Honshu, flowing in underneath it, out to the ocean. We have a disaster of biblical proportions. This is literally, you know, maybe we'll call this the book of, you know, the book of, you know, the end, you know, the book of judgment. And what we have going on right now is a disaster of, literally, if you read this in the Bible, if you say, and then the seas parted and the death spread from Fukushima Daiichi, and the sea life departed from this world, and the oceans turned red with blood. Does that sound biblical? Guess what? That's happening right now. The sea lions are dying. The starfish are dissolving and turning to goo. We're seeing all kinds of weird things happen, and people are not paying attention. And we don't have any action whatsoever from the, you know, when we have a pyrophoric fire, which is what I expect to be the next event. A pyrophoric fire means these things go on fire to 6,000 to 8,000 degrees. A pyrophoric fire means it's going to inject giant amounts of radiation into the atmosphere and the oceans. We are going to be facing an extinction level event, and people don't know how to recognize what's called low-level chronic radiation toxicity. And there's a thing called a PETKAU effect, P-E-T-K-A-U, if you want to know. It's a Canadian physics scientist. And we are facing the very real danger to the newborn, the unborn, the elderly. Many different species are not radio resistant, I mean non-cockroaches, that we're going to see many species of the ocean and the land die. We're also going to see the death of phytoplankton that allows us to convert carbon dioxide to oxygen, so the carbon-oxygen cycle in the largest ocean on Earth, and by the way, this communicates with every other ocean, is basically could go between the ultraviolet light shock, which is, by the way, sped up from the Fukushima Daiichi radiotoxins, like radioiodine, xenon, argon, etc. These already chew up the upper ozone layer and cause more ultraviolet light to kill more of the phytoplankton. And if you get a major die-off, guess what happens? You get a dinoflagellate bloom, which produces domoic acid that kills all fish and all living things in the ocean. That sure as heck sounds biblical to me. We're on the edge of a global catastrophe of biblical proportions. Tell us more.
Well, you know, there's a website I was looking at about, if you remember, we talked a lot about the FOIAs, the Freedom of Information Act responses that were asked from the media and from alternative media about back in the time frame of April of 2011, and see what was really going on. And a lot of those were released. There's a website named Patrick Henley, and I was looking at it this week. He just put out another blog. I sent you a link to his website. And what he did was he put a lot of those in order. You know, some of the things that we've done also. And he had some good comments about it. I give credit where credit's due. And the pyrophoric fire on Unit 4 spent fuel pool, they may have actually had it. It's not conclusive that what was the cause of the explosion on Unit 4, and it's not conclusive where did the hydrogen come from, and it would indicate that that they did have uncovery of the fuel at one point. So there is a lot of evidence in those FOIAs, and it's all strung together, so you don't have to go ahead and force.
Chris, is that the MOX plant? Is it 4 or 3 that's the MOX plant?
The MOX is the third one, yeah. Yeah, so the 3 is a MOX plant. The 4 is the SP4 cooling pool.
Yesterday there was a story out that there's a mountain 20 kilometers from Fukushima that's kind of in a town, and on all sides of that mountain they're finding plutonium and a variety of other things. And you know, 1 atom of plutonium ingested in the human body will kill you because it radiates nonstop. It keeps radiating, and you will die of something from that. And it's just, by the way, there's a story that biologists found pink salmon that are now canary yellow on Canada's Pacific coast. The insides are also yellow. Heart parts, gill arches, spines, cartilage in the head. Spines are swollen, liver spotted, and some have bugged out eyes. Unbelievable. In Canada. I mean, that's thousands of miles away from there.
Well, it took a long time to get across, but actually, that's probably just the tip of it.
Yeah.
Here's what I think is going to happen. Remember now, these are extinction level events, and you got to see the big picture. If you read Agenda 21, if you go right back to the Global 2000s books, it goes back to 2000 and before. If you read all the World Watch Institute, if you read all these documents by their own words, the globalists, from the Georgia Guidestones to all their documents from the World Health Organization, want to reduce the world population 95%. They want it to be under 500 million, preferably around 200 million to 500 million for the whole world, from roughly almost 7 billion. Now, they're not just going to give people kind of like a free pass to go to Mars or the moon or terraform.
I was getting ready to upload this video. Look at this ad pops up. I'll be a consumer activist right now. 2 people are spying on you. View now. View now. Ads by Google. What's really going on? Really? Only 2 people are spying on me? Wow. Heads up, everybody. Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is October 19th, 2013, and here's your news updates for today. Please, if you like the information in the video, give a thumbs up. Even if you don't like what I'm saying, but if it's important for other people to hear it, please give a thumbs up. Even though if it's sad information or wow, I don't like that that's happening, don't thumbs down it if you want other people to see it, because it's important information. Thumbs up or thumbs down, it really doesn't have to do with this makes me happy or this makes me sad. This means, oh, this is good information or this is worthless information. That way people will either, oh, a lot of views, let me check this out, or oh, look, a lot of thumbs up, let me check this out, or thumbs down, oh, well, maybe the video's distorted, or the information, I can't hear it, or something's wrong with it. You see what I mean? You're voting on not really the what the content means to you, the information. You're voting on, I mean, not the way it makes you feel. You're kind of voting on if it's good information or not. Get what I'm saying? Not that, oh, it's a sad story, it makes me feel sad, so, oh, I feel depressed now, I got a thumbs down it. Alright, get what I'm saying? Alright, out there in Watcherland. Here we go, Cyberland, Watcherland. Here we go. Second time around. The Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Small eruption reported at Indonesia's Semeru volcano. Shallow 6.5 magnitude earthquake strikes Gulf of California. Moving on. Alright. The Watchers watching the world. Very strong earthquake, magnitude 6.5 struck Mexico. Violent eruption at Kamchakan Kiluchetskoy volcano. Alright, moving on. Breaking news, breakingnews.com. See here. Tropical depression forms near coast of southern Mexico. Government issues tropical storm watch. at NHC Pacific. That was about an hour ago. Also, but by the time you get, it's probably 3 hours ago. It's taking a while to upload this stuff. Keep adding stuff to it too, since I had to start over. E&E News, Energy News, Japan, Fukushima. Japan Times, the great unknown. Where will nuclear fuel be found after melt-through at 3 Fukushima reactors? Official expert humans may have to hunt for corium after raising limits on radiation exposure. Gravest situation since 2011. This is also today. Fukushima accident. Nuclear expert emergency effort is needed at plant. I can't make out just why the Japanese are reluctant to take strong measures. Now, we're going to go to Paul BEGLEY to listen to him again. Sailor, after we left Japan, it felt as if the ocean itself was dead. Nothing alive for over 3,000 miles. No longer saw dolphins, turtles, sharks, birds. Saw one whale. It appeared helpless with big tumor on head. Now, excuse me. Let's go over to Paul BEGLEY, because he's going to read this, give you more information. We're not going to switch over to him. We're just going to listen to him. It makes it faster. Here we go. Excuse me. I was cutting Max's hair.
Are you serious? Are you serious? I've got some information I received from Burke of Canada that is just quite disturbing. The ocean is dying. The Pacific Ocean is dying between Japan and Hawaii, if not further. Get this. This was recorded, published by ENEnews.com. A sailor was on a ship headed back. He's traveled the ocean seas many, many, many times. His own words, quote, after we left Japan,
wow, they keep cutting
it felt as if the ocean itself was dead. Nothing alive for over 3,000 miles.
They're trying to censor this.
No longer saw turtles, dolphins, sharks.
Here, hold on a moment. Let's try it here. Maybe it's better. They're trying to censor this. Now it's cutting in and out. It wasn't cutting in and out before.
Are you serious? Are you serious? I've got some information I received from Burke of Canada that is just quite disturbing. The ocean is dying. The Pacific Ocean is dying between Japan and Hawaii, if not further. Get this. This was recorded, published by ENEnews.com. A sailor was on a ship headed back. He's traveled the ocean seas many, many, many times. His own words, quote, after we left Japan, it felt as if the ocean itself was dead. Nothing alive for over 3,000 miles. No longer saw turtles, dolphins, sharks, birds. Saw one whale, and it appeared helpless with a big tumor on its head. What? Are you serious? Are you serious? Get this. He wrote, the next leg of the long voyage was from Osaka, apparently Japan, to San Francisco. And for most of the trip, the desolation was tinged with nauseous horror and a degree of fear. After we left Japan, It felt as if the ocean itself was dead. We hardly saw any living things. We saw one whale sort of rolling helplessly on the surface with what looked like a big tumor on its head. It was pretty sickening. I've done a lot of miles on the ocean, and in my lifetime I'm used to seeing turtles, dolphins, sharks, big flurries of feeding birds. But this time, for 3,000 nautical miles, there was nothing alive to be seen. Is the ocean dying? Is the island of Japan dying? But wait a minute, In place of the missing life, we saw garbage in astounding volumes. And something else, the boat's yellow paint job faded by sun. It has never faded by sun or sea in years gone past. But it reacted with something in the water off the coast of Japan, losing its sheen in a strange and unprecedented way. Folks, and get this, and he goes on to say, in a lot of places, we couldn't start our motor for entangling of the propeller in the mass of pieces of rope and cables. That's an unheard of situation out in the ocean. If we did decide to start our motor, we couldn't do it at night at all, only in the daytime with a lookout on the bow, watching for rubbish. On the bow, in the waters above Hawaii, we could see right down into the depths. I could see that the debris isn't just on the surface. It's all the way down. And it's of all sizes, from soft drink bottles to pieces and sizes of a big car or truck. What? We saw a factory chimney sticking out of the water with some kind of boiler thing still attached below the surface. We were weaving around these pieces of debris. It was like sailing through a garbage pit. Are you serious? Are you serious? The ocean is dying. The land is greatly polluted. The waters are polluted. The Bible told us that the day would come when the land would be greatly polluted in the book of Hosea. Oh, I'm telling you, folks, we are living in the days that the Bible warned us would come, as great earthquakes, tsunamis, meteorites, plagues, poisons, and the water would become like wormwood. Now, I know this isn't the wormwood spoken of directly in Revelation. We haven't seen that. We haven't had that massive mountain like burning like a lamp, a big mountain burning, crash into the earth, a meteorite or a comet or something. But certainly, we can't deny that the nuclear waste, the nuclear reaction, the melting down of these nuclear reactors in Japan. Remember, folks, this earthquake was the 5th largest earthquake in the recorded history of the world at 8.9. It literally shook the ground of Tokyo for 6 minutes. Then, a half hour later, a tsunami come roaring ashore, so forceful, so strong, that it moved the island of Japan 8 feet, according to the GPS, and came inland with a surge of flooding water 6 miles. So it shook the ground for 6 minutes, water came inland 6 miles, and it left at Fukushima 6 nuclear power reactors melting down with the worst of the... This thing it's 1,000 times worse than Chernobyl, and nobody's talking. We ought to bury this thing. We ought to bury this entire plant. We ought to bury this thing in charcoal and sand and bury it. Pray for the people that live in Japan. Pray for the people in Hawaii. Pray for the people that live all the way up and down the California coast as this radiated, polluted waters continues to dissipate, if you will, as it begins to spread across the ocean. The ocean.
Doesn't dissipate.
The beautiful Pacific Ocean
accumulates.
Is dying.
Alrighty then. Alright, we'll continue with the E&E news. Moving on. This is going to be, I guess, after Pastor Paul BEGLEY. I inserted him. Now let's go back. Japan professor. It's such a dangerous situation for other countries, Gunderson. Government does not want an adequate solution for crisis at Fukushima. Fear of it being found out just how bad things really are at plant, with a question mark. Super typhoon on course for Japan. Winds up to 190 miles an hour. Could soon be Category 5 storm. May follow Typhoon Wifa's path. So this is another one. Developed in a similar area. Okay, let's get rid of that one. U.S. Canada. CNN. Scientists puzzled as rare sea monsters wash ashore in Southern California. Expert. Expert. 2 giant oarfish and saber-toothed whale in a week. What's going on? Also, TV. Concerns about rain on U.S. West Coast having Fukushima contamination. The monitoring effort, our vigilance should be stepped up. Remember, they turned off RadNet. Alrighty then. It's been raining, it's been contaminating. Alright. Moving on. Have a good evening. Be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow on the flip side. I'm just going to insert this somehow after Paul BEGLEY's. Alright, take care. Be safe.
The people in charge of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant have another challenge on their hands. Tokyo Electric Power Company officials say the effects of a leak of contaminated water are expanding. They've detected a sharp rise in radioactivity in groundwater in a monitoring well. NHK World's Yuji Osawa reports.
Workers at Fukushima Daiichi seem to have a new challenge on their hands every day. More than 300 tons of contaminated water leaked out of a storage tank in August. And they've been dealing with the effects ever since. Some of the water may have flowed out through a ditch and into the Pacific Ocean. Workers dug a well about 10 meters from the tank to monitor the impact. On Thursday, they detected 400,000 becquerels per liter of strontium and other radioactive substances in the well. That's 6,500 times higher than readings taken the day before. Fishermen worry about what the leaks might mean for them. The accident 2 years ago forced crews up and down the coast to stop working. Starting in June of last year, those in northern Fukushima headed back out onto the water to carry out test catches. And now, fishermen from the port city of Iwaki have headed out for test catches of their own.
We are 30% hopeful and 70% worried about the contaminated water. We'll do our best, but were anxious about what consumers will think.
The fishermen have to stay at least 40 kilometers away from the nuclear plant. And they can only catch 16 kinds of seafood, including octopus, hairy crab, and the local specialty, round green eyes. Fishing cooperatives test for radioactivity. They've set their own safety limit, twice as strict as the government standard. If a sample does not meet their criteria, all of the species caught that day will be thrown out. Fishermen on Friday hauled in more than 1 ton of marine products. They were tested for radioactivity, but no tainted samples were found. The fishermen will ship their catch to markets around the prefecture on Saturday morning. Yuji Osawa, NHK World.
There's a worrying spike in a radiation at the Fukushima nuclear plant. Readings from a water storage tank have rocketed 6,500 times higher in 2 days. A powerful typhoon swept through Japan earlier this week, causing toxic water to be released into a drainage ditch leading to the Pacific Ocean. It's compounded what's been a worsening situation at the plant in recent months, as Irina Galushko explains.
2.5 years to admit the painful truth. Japan needs help.
We are wide open to receive the most advanced knowledge from overseas to contain the problem. My country needs your knowledge and expertise.
The past few months have been marked by growing problems at Fukushima. Several workers have been exposed to radiation, the levels of which are reportedly at their highest since the accident in 2011. And, on top of that, there's the issue of leakage.
This is the reactor. Inside it is the reactor core, the actual nuclear part of the plant. This is water which is used to cool the nuclear core so it doesn't burst in flames. That water obviously has to go somewhere, so it goes into a special container which is slightly below the reactor itself, where irradiated water is stored and then filtered. Unfortunately, at the Fukushima plant, the situation is such that this container with the irradiated water is located on the very seashore. This is the ocean. And the problem with the Fukushima is that there is a leak, supposedly, right here. So from there, the irradiated water is flowing into the Pacific Ocean.
Sadly, Russia has a lot of experience to offer when it comes to wiping up remnants of a nuclear catastrophe. It has had its own deadly lesson a quarter of a century ago.
Fukushima should be treated just like Chernobyl, as a wreck that must be retired and put in a sarcophagus. The problem with Fukushima is that they can't decide whether they want to close it or to keep it going.
Closing the plant doesn't seem to be an option for TEPCO, the company operating the facility, which many in Japan blame for the failure to handle the Fukushima crisis. In fact, TEPCO is pushing towards reopening its Kashiwazaki Kariwa facility, the world's largest nuclear power station. It was shut down in 2007, following reports of radioactive leaks after a powerful earthquake. But the power giant seems undeterred by the prospect of having 2 malfunctioning nuclear power stations on its hands, maybe hoping an international effort would solve both problems at the same time. Irina Galushko, RT.
Fukushima's troubles turn back, of course, to the earthquake and tsunami that ravaged Japan in March of 2011. Now, it took a year for Japan's government to admit that the nuclear disaster was caused by the improper handling of the crisis, and the plant's operator, TEPCO, well, they say it could have been avoided. Now, 2 years after the crisis hit, radiation is recorded in local fish and a leak discovered at a storage tank with contaminated waters. And when TEPCO finally admits that there is leaking toxic water, it also revealed that up to 300 tons of that radioactive leak was also found in water flowing into the ocean. Now, Robert Jacobs, who's an associate professor at Hiroshima Peace University, says there's no immediate solution for the crisis.
Nobody really knows how to solve the problems at Fukushima. There is nobody who has solutions to these. The problems at Fukushima are unprecedented. So even bringing in outside expertise all that they can do is try to problem solve. There's no solution that other countries have that they can come in and fix the reactors, or rather shut down the contamination, shut down the leaks. So even other countries coming in and bringing their expertise will hopefully bring more professionalism than TEPCO has shown in the last 2.5 years. But even those experts will be at a loss as to how to solve the immense problems that we'll be facing for decades in Fukushima.
Kevin Camps is the nuclear waste watchdog with Beyond Nuclear, the website beyondnuclear.org. And Kevin, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tom.
This is a whole lot more serious than being in Playboy. The Fukushima nuclear reactors are all problematic. Reactor number 4 particularly problematic. Close hit from a typhoon. We were a cyclone. I was talking about that on the air earlier in the week, and I just wanted to get you on and check in with you. What's the latest? What's going on?
Oh, it's such chaos at the Fukushima Daiichi site. It's at least a weekly, if not a daily, crisis, and that includes things like leaks of highly radioactive water into the ground that then flow into the ocean on a regular basis, and workers getting doused with highly radioactive water, making incredible mistakes like overfilling the storage containers with highly radioactive water so it just spills over the top and then goes into the ground and into the ocean. And you mentioned Unit 4. That's, the ground over there is so waterlogged with highly radioactive water that there's concern that the structural integrity of Unit 4, which is already very questionable, is even further undermined. It's kind of like a quicksand situation. So here's a, worst storm in a decade, incredible amounts of rainfall, like close to 1 meter of rainfall in just a day. I can't even imagine that. So,
well, at least that's water they didn't have to, they've been pouring water on these reactors to keep them from overheating with fire hoses and things, haven't they? I mean, maybe storm gave them a break for a day.
Well, the typhoon actually, what it's done is it's worsened the radioactive water leaks into the ground and into the ocean.
Right.
So at Unit 4, they're about to start, probably in a couple weeks or less, starting to move the irradiated fuel out of the storage pool, which is a very dicey operation, but they have to do it, because if another quake with that, quicksand ground takes that building down, it would be a catastrophic fire releasing hazardous radioactivity. So they're trying to get the waste down to the ground without dropping it, because that could punch a hole in the floor of the pool and drain the cooling water away. So it's already a global catastrophe that's been, unfolding for over 2.5 years, but it could get a whole lot worse in a great big hurry.
Wow. How is it affecting the rest of the globe? It seems like there's no reporting whatsoever on this other than, hey, they got a problem over there in Japan and they're not quite sure what to do.
Yeah, I mean, the things happening at Fukushima Daiichi, if they were happening somewhere else, would be huge news, because they're serious nuclear accidents, but because it's there, they just lump it into the mess and stop paying attention to it a long time ago. The way it's affecting the rest of the world at this point, anyway, are these daily releases of 300 tons of radioactive water, which is 72,000 gallons of radioactive water flowing into the bay and then into the ocean beyond. And sometimes when they have leaks from this tank farm of giant storage containers where the highly radioactive water is stored, then it is highly radioactive water going into the ocean. So that's a constant daily release of radioactivity into the ocean. Unfortunately, the nuclear establishment, the Japanese government, see it as dilution is the solution. It's a big Pacific Ocean. What they're ignoring is the bioconcentration of radioactivity in the food chain, in the fish. And there is pressure by the fishing industry, including, even small-scale family fishermen, to begin fishing that coastline, which is going to be very problematic. We have less protection on our seafood here in the U.S. than the Japanese do. So we could easily import radioactive fish from Japan that they see as unfit for humans.
And not even know it.
Yeah, the testing programs here are not good. And there's a group called Fukushima Fallout Awareness Network that's working hard to get the Food and Drug Administration to take this issue seriously.
Now, the principal elements that are taken up by animals are, correct me if I'm wrong, are cesium, right, is taken up as potassium. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah,
and
in muscle tissue, so you got cesium-134 and cesium-137 radioactive.
Right, and then what's the one that's taken up by the bones? Strontium?
Strontium 90.
Strontium 90. And then, of course, iodine's taken up by the thyroid, but iodine has a much shorter lifespan, the radioactive iodine.
The iodine 131 has an 8-day or 80-day hazardous persistence.
Right.
You've got iodine 129, which is a forever poison, so that would still be an issue.
Oh, I didn't know that. So are these elements, I mean, if there's cesium or strontium in the fish, radioactive cesium and strontium in the fish, and you eat the fish, it's going to get in your body, and your body's going to absorb it, the cesium into the muscle tissue, the strontium into your bones, and eventually can very easily cause cancer because these things emit particles and rays that bust up DNA in ways that flip cancer on.
Yeah.
But are they radioactive enough that I have one of these little Geiger counters that I bought on, well, it's not so little, it's about 4 times the size of a pack of cigarettes. And it was like about $400. It's supposed to be a really good one. And I keep wanting to take it into restaurants and into supermarkets, and my wife won't let me. I mean, this is literally, Louise and I get into, it's one of the few things that we just really disagree about. And I've even thought about, just going to the supermarket alone one day and walking around with a Geiger counter. But And when we lived in Germany, I could actually get it to trip over mushrooms in particular, and eventually some kinds of milk. Because we lived in Germany, we moved there literally in May of 1986 or June of '86, right after the meltdown at Chernobyl. But is that radiation hot enough that you could pick it up with a handheld Geiger counter?
Well, just a word of advice on going to restaurants. You could turn the sound off on your meter, and you wouldn't attract any attention. You'd just be anonymously checking the radiation in your food. But, they do run similar devices over the seafood in Japan. I mean, I've seen photographs of this. There's probably something like that going on at the federal level in the United States. It's kind of a rudimentary way of checking for radioactivity in food, though. You need special equipment. You actually need to do it in a more of a laboratory-like setting, because even dilute radioactivity in the flesh of fish or in other foodstuffs can be a problem. I mean,
I mean, if it's emitting 1 particle a minute, you wouldn't notice that with a Geiger counter. But if that becomes part of your heart muscle and it's emitting 1 particle a minute for the next 10 years, that could take you down.
Well, here's the figures. In Japan, it's 100 becquerels per kilogram in food. That's the cutoff. If it's worse than that, it's unfit for human consumption. A becquerel is a radioactive disintegration per second. So you can think of it in time. It's 100 radioactive disintegrations per second in 2.2
So that, if you could measure that with a Geiger counter, that would sound like brrrr.
Yep. And in the U.S., it's 12 times worse. We allow 1,200 becquerels per kilogram in our food.
You're kidding.
Incredibly. Nope. It's,
Louise is not going to stop me from carrying that Geiger counter. There's a network of people around America doing this, aren't there?
Yeah, it's called the Fukushima Fallout Awareness Network, and they focused on the Food and Drug Administration with a petition drive, an official petition calling on the FDA to do much more testing on the seafood supply.
Yeah, amazing. Kevin Camps, nuclear waste watchdog at Beyond Nuclear. BeyondNuclear.org is the website. Keep an eye on Fukushima and tell your friends. Thank you, Kevin, for dropping by.
Thanks so much, Tom.
We'll be back.
A team of nuclear experts has arrived in Japan to help the government deal with one of its toughest problems. Members of the International Atomic Energy Agency will advise on how to decontaminate areas around the damaged nuclear plant in Fukushima. Leader Juan Carlos Lentijo says the priorities should be reducing radiation levels and disposing of contaminated soil. It's the second time Lentijo has brought an IAEA team to Japan. He came 2 years ago, just before full-scale decontamination work began around Fukushima Daiichi. At that time, they advised Japan's leaders to focus on areas of higher radiation to minimize the volume of tainted soil they have to deal with. The team plans to submit a new report to the government next Monday. The IAEA will help Japanese experts monitor radiation levels in the sea just off the plant. And South Korea wants to participate. South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se made the announcement to Parliament on Monday.
We are very interested in the monitoring that the IAEA will be leading. We will send delegates to take part in that work. I've already told the relevant departments to prepare.
Consumers there are growing increasingly concerned about the safety of fishery products. Leaders in Seoul have banned imports of seafood from Fukushima and 7 other prefectures. Leaders in Tokyo want that ban lifted. Japanese delegates took their case to the World Trade Organization in Geneva. They said there's no scientific basis for the embargo. They said marine products undergo radiation checks before they're shipped overseas.
As we've pointed out, WTO rules state there should be no arbitrary or unreasonable barriers between member countries. I believe many countries now understand Japan's view.
But South Korean officials say they can't take chances with food safety. They said they'll ask Japan's government to provide more detailed information.
Japan's Fisheries Agency is changing how it releases information on the contamination of waters off the Fukushima Daiichi plant. It will soon provide more multilingual data. This comes after the South Korean government last month imposed a blanket ban on marine products from 8 Japanese prefectures, including Fukushima. The Fisheries Agency currently discloses updates on its website about radioactive contamination of seawater surrounding the Fukushima plant. The web pages are now available in Japanese and English, but the agency decided to translate the information into Chinese and Korean as well. The agency hopes people overseas will be persuaded that Japanese marine products are safe and that the ban is unnecessary. Visitors to the government website will be able to access the extended multilingual information by the end of this month.
After Chernobyl, we finally hear all kinds of cancer went up the next year. Hard to interpret, says OPCS. Can't understand it, well, here is a guess. Low-level isotopes from the Ukraine drifted to Wales on the wind and the rain. Rainfall is higher in Bangor than Kent. Cancer in Wales is up 30%. We're breathing strontium, locking it into the structure of cellular DNA. And each should be to decay in an occasional, rather mutational way. Kills us. Even New Labour can see what it means. Radioisotopes alter your genes. Ghosts of dead babies will give them no rest till the dosimetry's been reassessed. Wombling, strombling, Bangor to Kent, telling the news of the second event. Telling the story all and 2 scenes. Radioisotopes alter your genes. Nuclear establishment, castle of lies. Children are dying in front of your eyes. Born with no limbs, with 2 heads or no brain. Born to a life of incurable pain. Nuclear subsidies victims will pay, while you take a pension and tiptoe away. Don't reassure us, 'cause we always knew yours was a story too slick to be true. We're breathing strontium, locking it into the structure of cellular DNA, and each should be to decay in an occasional, rather mutational way. Kills us. Nobody's hiding these nuclear crooks. Government stooges aren't cooking the books. Only the mothers are guilty of crimes, bearing their children in nuclear times. Radioisotopes float around free, up in the atmosphere, up near the sea. So many diseases genetically linked. Strontium bombs will soon be extinct, 'cause we're breathing strontium, locking it into the structure of cellular DNA. And each should be to decay in an occasional, rather mutational way. Kills us. After Chernobyl, kinds of cancer went up the next year. Hard to interpret, says OPCS. Can't understand it, well, here is a guess. Low-level isotopes from the Ukraine drifted to Wales on the wind and the rain. Rainfall is higher in Bangor than Kent. Cancer in Wales is up 30%. We're breathing strontium, locking it into the structure of cellular DNA. And each beta decay in an occasional, rather mutational way kills us. Even new Labour can see what it means. Radioisotopes alter your genes. Ghosts of dead babies will give them no rest till the dosimetry's been reassessed. Wombling, strombling, Bangor to Kent, telling the news of the second event. Telling the story all and two scenes. How radioisotopes alter your genes. Nuclear establishment, castle of lies. Children are dying in front of your eyes. Born with no limbs, with two heads or no brain. Born to a life of incurable pain. Nuclear subsidies victims will pay, while you take a pension and tiptoe away. Don't reassure us, cause we always knew yours was a story too slick to be true. We're breathing strontium, locking it into the structure of cellular DNA.
They'll be calling you a radical. We got a lot to talk about Fukushima, the story that's breaking at them. Hey, hey, what you gonna do? Look, people can say, oh, the PCB dumps, the issues that have been going in Southern California. Don't forget this. This study that's coming out of Malibu, do not forget this. This is thyroid cancer. It's like the giant herd of elephants no one wants to talk about. They try to pigeonhole it over. This is the subject matter that nobody's going to talk about, and they think it's going to go away. This isn't 9/11. This isn't... By the way, Greenspan's out on a public speaking tour. He should be in a fucking prison cell, the greatest terrorist in history. But the study coming out of TEPCO, 6,500 times Santrum, in the trench next to the well. As these studies came out early in June, in July, I cannot believe people are so in epic denial. As far as the study in Malibu, and hear me out on this, hear me out. We understand all these issues, but this is acute. This is acute. What has happened acutely different? Fukushima, thyroid cancer. I love how you will, science teachers, you will quote Einstein whenever it benefits you. But when it comes to freaking nuclear, it's like, oh, he doesn't even exist. It's like people say, oh, they won't fund the studies out of the Pacific. Bullshit. Berkeley, Stanford, freaking UCLA, San Diego State, University of Washington, Oregon State. They have permanent buoys in the Pacific, all over the Pacific. Permanent. I know for a fact their data's out there. You think about the statistical probability of not one single test coming out of the American universities on Fukushima in 952 days. The statistical probability is, it's impossible. Look, I've read the study over and over online with the University of Arizona participating in it, Denmark University, a bunch of Japanese, German, there were international studies all over showing it was in the column 25 miles out, 300 meters down in June of 2011. Look, I will default, go to Richard Miller Under the Cloud. If anybody does not read that, you can look up that map. He was here in Utah as the downwinder thesis was so heavy here. Look, as he studied and studied, he showed where it rained the next day, where the plume was, and then he went into those areas and he did data on thyroid cancer, then leukemia. There are dramatic increases in the acute, and then he talked about the long-term effects. Why is nobody talking, oh, the moose are all dying, that can't be Fukushima. The starfish are melting, oh, that can't be Fukushima. It's like this, you know, Lonnie Clark says it best. It's like this woman. She's married to this guy, and she has children, either from him or other marriages, whatever. And the man is continually molesting the children. The children have all kinds of, and the woman knows, but she just goes and denials and blames it on everything else. Oh, this kid needs to be on Ritalin. This kid that's exactly what is going on here in North America. Why is not nobody any talk? Study after study after study is coming out of the Pacific Ocean. As I call it, the Pacific genocide. You know, this cover-up as Jacko was taken into the situation. It's not even conspiratory. They told you right in your face. This is how we covered up. We crashed Redknot. We raised the limits. We know what the limits are. The plume hammered. It is safer to live in Tokyo than it is San Francisco, Los Angeles, Malibu. Hey. I like to talk a lot about music. As you know, I tag music as this art form of me telling this tale. I got cancer 7 months after Fukushima. Scream my head, it's going to give you leukemia. It's going to give you leukemia. I got leukemia. Less than 3% chance of survival in this thing. I was in a bone marrow. I've been telling this tale in detail. I like to use music for a reason, because I'm a socioeconomist, and I think the modern day artists, so many of them are songwriters. Great songwriters, they hypothesize forward humanity. Cobain was the greatest out of it. Nature is a whore in bloom. But I was tagging the song Malibu in some of my videos earlier this summer. I mean, those things are profound. How can we know factually, it's scientifically studied? This is no debate. This is no debate. The 40,000 atomic veterans, which I was head of the atomic veterans for years and years, my father nuked to death. We know by that study that government data is there. I've presented it multiple times online. We know that just that exposure to those bombs, first thyroid cancer, then leukemia, kills them all. We know from Chernobyl, we know the data out from Chernobyl, that if freaking nuclear fallout causes thyroid cancer in the uterus. These studies are all there. How can you not? It's like the sea lions. Okay, we had all the sea lions. The guy goes right down there with the Geiger counter right underneath Sonnery, and slide up, nothing. How is that possible that not one person has done any backup data? We've been waiting for this all summer, nothing. I was in San Diego. I interviewed I've been involved in the Navy, in the Marines. They know. The USS Reagan, they're already getting cancer from Fukushima. They know. Why can't anybody? Okay, right here in Utah, our Hogo Zoo right here, they have a sea lion that got here from an accident. He was blind. One of the famous creatures. He got leukemia this summer and just boom. Now, he was here before, but they're marker species. We know the sea lions are marker species. We know that dolphins are marker species. We know that the dolphins freaking were fleeing. You know, it's hurt. We know the moose are dying across North America. We know the starfish are freaking dying. We know the humans are. We know the leukemia rates are spiking. We know the cancer is spiking. The young gynecologist up in Washington over a year ago did come out with her study saying, look, we've seen breast cancer faster, harder, more extreme. They're killing you quicker. Then she got breast cancer and died. You know, just like me, I ran and raved. Our hospital, it's more acute. Look, leukemia like AML, working class man's disease because of exposure to benzene. You know, airplane mechanics from the fuel, railroaders from the fuel, paint, you know, all these different fumes. But now we're seeing in 20 to 35 AML. It never happened. Now, the other horrific leukemias, they're different leukemias. Juvenile leukemia, they're different, but we're seeing so many abstract, radical, crazy leukemias now. We're seeing young women in epic proportion, because it affects young women first. It hits the thyroid first. Now look, Malibu, you can say, okay, why is there talking in Malibu and not here? And let me talk about this. Why is this showing up in Malibu? Because there has been an acute awareness because of the chemical dumping under the school sites, and they're testing and they're not finding it. But what it has done is thrown a spotlight. I think if the same spotlight was all up and down California, in Salt Lake, in Utah, in Colorado, in Idaho, in Vancouver, Canada, in Ontario, in Toronto, in New York City, I think if the same spotlight, the same results would be showing up as is showing up in Malibu, because that spotlight's on the school and they're going in there. This is Fukushima. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind this is Fukushima. All this is Fukushima. Look, the numbers that hammered over North America in the early days were gigantic. I've reported this. You want to, spend some time. Go into my videos. Go to 3/12/12, even before that, and just start going through them. You'll type in a date, Fukushima, 3/11. I've got some on my channel page. There's 5 or 6 of them right there, but I did hundreds and hundreds. I reported this in absolute real-time detail. The spiking of the 6,500 via the swamped out hurricane and typhoon. We've been seeing these numbers all summer long. It's been vastly reported. The media, as I've turned it black and yellow journalism, it's malice. Sanjay Gupta, if you want to know everything about the media, I've read this transcript multiple times over and over. I'll tag it again here. He was over there. Remember, this is a practicing neurosurgeon. He took the Hippocratic Oath. This is malice. He should be in a jail cell. Read this and you tell me this was 15 days after Fukushima. Read this. I mean, this is so grotesque and so malice. How can this country be so in epic denial? This Greenspan, you know, it all falls together. He's out on the speaking tour. NPR had him on. I'm like, this is the greatest terrorist in world history. Well, now he's the second. General Electric. I mean, Japan is us. Japan does nothing without us. That was the treaty signed after World War II. Nothing. We're being hammered with nuclear fallout. There are 3 full core meltdowns in China Syndrome for 900. Please, you want to quote you science teachers, high school, college, academia, where the fuck are you? The marine biologists, you evil bastards, where the fuck are you? Really, you want to quote Einstein over and over and over and say this brilliant fucking guy, Oppenheimer, Sokoloff, all this science, but only when the science fits your mantra. You don't want to quote the science when, here it is, right here. Nuclear fission is happening. We just letting it go. Why? You can't even have a conversation about it. Oh, you're a lunatic. No, we're not lunatics. You know, we're not going out in left field. Now, people want to talk about, oh, this caused earthquake. I don't even go there. I'm talking about the facts that we do know. We know that RadNet was crashed after 3-4 days. RadNet, Radiation Detecting Network, is all over the freaking world, or the United States. We know what the readings were. We saw them. The plume was very real. It went up. The wind blows out. It is safer to live in Tokyo than it is in San Francisco, in Seattle, in Portland, in Vancouver, Canada. It was all across. The plume has hammered us. You know, what can we do? What can you get? Well, bolster the immune system, eat fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. You know, be able to freaking be aware of these things like these people right here. You're getting problems with your thyroid. Talk to the doctors about this, about as far as being leukemia. I'm telling you. Is this going to be a whole life extinct? No. Unless it's going to kill a lot of people. It's going to kill millions of people. But if we continue to let it go on over there, you know, who knows how far this thing is burned down and what is it? I am dumbfounded. Even as much as I've ranted and raved and carried on this, I would have never believed this thing could go on 950 degrees. I would have never believed the vast fingers as far as the corporate media. I'm blown away. I mean, videos with my central line hanging out of my jugular. I thought people would be all over me like, oh my God, what a compelling, epic story this is. Oh my God, I can't believe this in real time. Wow. America, what the fuck is the matter with you? Morality, you have none. You know, the exploitation of slaves in China is so grotesque, but this is even more. You cannot wrap your round around that nuclear fallout is cancer. The studies are all there. It's 100% declared. 100%. And what I want to say one last thing is this viral video that's going to these punks in Utah pushing over this fucking multi-million. Why would they do? That's what the Mormons teach here. That's what Utah, you fucking piece of shit software. That's what they do. Rape the earth for profit. Dump fucking storage waste for profit. That's what we teach our youth. That's what we teach our youth. Oh, you're a tree hugger. You soft piece of fucking, call me a soft fucking tree hugger. Fucking leukemia and all, and see what the fuck happens to you. It's time to strengthen up with fucking intelligence and fucking strength. And tell this fucking tale. Until we could fucking get it out into the fucking culture and they can understand that this is very, very fucking real. And it's not some hyperbole, all fucking fairy tale bullshit. You know, Einstein's great quote, I don't know what, we keep going down the nuclear road. I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. I mean, it's time. Stay on tuned.